Get the Angel Reese special at McDonald's now. Let's break it down. My favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, of course. And don't forget the fries and a drink. Sound good? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating restaurants for a limited time.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. Ooh, ah, I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week, Paige made us watch
I Can Do Bad All by Myself.
So, Paige, was this the first time you had seen Tyler Perry's musical?
Yeah, a musical is it's classified as a musical. I would use that loosely. When we did Confessions of a Marriage Counselor,
Right.
which I find to be a hilariously bonkers Tyler Perry movie. When we did that one, so many people commented, DM'd, everything that they were like, you guys have to do I Can Do Bad All by Myself. And we hadn't gotten to it till now. This is the first appearance of Madea on this show. Probably not the last.
Yeah, I got a question about that because I got a really sneaking suspicion that Madea and Dadea are just Tyler Perry in disguise. Can you confirm or deny this?
I can neither confirm nor deny the secret identities of those old people, but
the mystery continues.
I have questions about their relationship. We'll talk about it once we get into the movie, but
I'm pretty sure they just hate children. I don't know that they're sexually active beings at all other than they hate children. Oh,
hey.
He's definitely fucking the VCR though. He loves VCRs way more than anyone should love a VCR.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the last media technologies that has a slot you can slip into, but
I was never able to get into it. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
I think this has, there's a whole lot going on in this movie. We will talk about it. And it does this was a play that is then a morality play that is then translated into film. So,
this is what Tyler Perry does. He writes a bunch of plays for that circuit, the church circuit of plays that very much exists here in the South. And then he was so successful doing that, he was able to make them into movies, which is great because he built his own media empire from the ground up, and that is awesome.
Right. I'd say there's some catch-22s with his media empire because I appreciate that they produce so much content. That's expensive. He is absolutely putting his money where his mouth is as far as trying to make as much content as possible for as many people as possible. Great. The downside is they be recording whole seasons of TV in a week and not paying people great amounts of money. And so I'm kind of but I think the problem is more that we need more things like Tyler Perry creating spaces for media like this so that there would be competition.
Yeah, I think the reason I like it so much is because you would hear things when that Sony leak happened because of that Kim Jong-il movie where they hacked us and or they hacked Sony and they released those emails and all of that stuff came out about how they were executives there saying, I think it might have been Will Smith or some African-American actor. And they were well, we can't greenlight that movie because black quote doesn't travel or whatever. It's not worth it to do those movies.
Oh, right. Because it doesn't sell well overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
Or there isn't enough of a market for a movie with a black lead in it or whatever. I think it's really cool that because Hollywood wasn't focusing on that necessarily and Tyler Perry just sort of started making content for that community because that's what he was in. He like made this like media empire out of this very obvious gap in our media that we didn't have.
Yes.
And I think that that's great. I think as a media landscape, we're better off because Tyler Perry exists.
Yes.
I do realize he is problematic with some of his hiring practices
how
he pays people. I just think that it's cool that he, whether he knew it or not at the time, like found the perfect lane to build his own media empire.
Yeah.
Which is very rare. It's very rare.
It is very rare. And also these movies do make money. They make a ton of money.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
So like they actively prove the studios wrong. You know, when studios say there's not an audience, they're wrong. They are empirically data-backed wrong.
I'll just drop a little fun fact about box office. Like this movie was #1 the weekend it came out.
Of course it was. That doesn't surprise me at all. Tyler Perry's movies are almost always #1 when they come out.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're good because we will have some things to say.
Well, and I'll say this about this movie. Yeah, like I don't think that this movie is, quote, good for me necessarily because it has a very specific worldview that I just don't jive with all that well. But I'll be honest with you, I really do love gospel music.
Yes.
And so like...
This was my next note, but go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just take you through my emotional journey with the whole this movie does not speak to my worldview thing. Because I immediately was like, how is this church so opulent and nice? Literally, we find it at the end of the movie, a song's throw, because she can hear them from the church singing, a song's throw away from the church from extreme poverty that they live in. I'm like, how is this church so wealthy? And then they show the pastor, and it's fucking... It's like Marvin Wagons or whatever, and he's like a hugely successful, like, gospel artist.
Right.
He and his family, like he was one of the, it was like I think they were like sort of the Jackson 5 of gospel music. It was like a bunch of...
There are a handful of families like that. Yeah. They are one of them. Yes, yes.
And so like you watch him like perform his sermon and then like sing a song. Like he takes a song break in his sermon that pertains to the sermon he's preaching. And I was just like, oh, this guy is like so impressive as an entertainer. He made tons of money. And at 40 was like, I'm going to give it up and go to God. And so he just like funded a church and that's all he does now. Like that's the only thing that made sense to me because he is so talented. I was honestly like mad at how talented he was.
This brings me to my note about this as a musical because I think we complain about when we do musicals, especially modern musicals.
Right.
We complain about them casting people who can't sing for songs that are good and would be great if someone could sing them.
Yeah.
This movie did the opposite. There's so much singing talent in this movie. Every single person that sings in this movie is a once-in-a-lifetime singing talent.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it's Gladys Knight. It's
Gladys Knight and Mary J. Blige.
And Mary J. Blige, yeah, exactly. So it's literally like household names if you're in a gospel community, but two of those three, like the one you may not know is him.
Right.
The other two, you definitely know.
You definitely know.
Yeah.
Mary J. Blige has 3 lines in this movie and 2 songs.
Yeah, they know how to use a Blige.
Well, yes and no. All of the songs in this are original songs for the play. And that's the part that's not so great. Because if you think about Mamma Mia, where it's like, they've got songs we all know that no one can sing. This movie is like, we don't know any of these songs, but damn it, all of these people are great. Like every single song is incredible.
Yeah.
But because they're all original songs, some are better than others. The title song, I Can Do Battle by Myself, inexplicably sung by Mary J. Blige instead of Taraji P. Henson, which would be more in character if it was Taraji P. Henson.
Of course it would, yeah.
Who is also incredible for everything she sings.
I don't know Mary J. Blige's journey in this movie, so it might work for her too, but we don't see that side of her.
Maybe. We have no idea. But that and the gospel songs that come in later are the best songs in the movie.
By far.
Because there's the song they have Gladys Knight sing earlier in the movie. She's like, I think you all know what I'm going to sing. And then she sings a song that not only have we never heard before, and neither has Shazam. Because I was trying to figure out if this was like, I was like, is this like a deep cut Gladys Knight B-side that I don't know somehow? No, Shazam doesn't even know what it is. And it also has no chorus, Todd.
I know.
The song doesn't have a chorus.
Paige, I love Gladys Knight. She's amazing. She's had a bunch of hits. But if she came up and said, you guys probably know what I'm going to sing, I would have bet my life on Midnight train to Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the one everybody knows from Gladys Knight, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying she doesn't have any other hits. She clearly does have other hits, but like that is the one people know her for, right?
Well, and it's definitely because they couldn't get the rights to it, for sure.
I'm sure, yeah.
But also, the song that she does sing is like thematically significant. Because here's every song in this, even though some of them don't have a chorus, which is a weird thing to do for a song, but like, even the ones that don't have a chorus, they all thematically make sense. If you listen to the lyrics, it's a lot like a Les Mis that's like exposition in a song. And that's kind of what is happening, but it's gospel music. But you can understand and see kind of where they're coming from. Because the I Can Do Bad All By Myself song is literally a song about like, don't kick me while I'm down. I have put myself down enough. Like, and that's why I was like, this should be Taraji P. Henson's song. But again, I'm not going to argue with Mary J. Blige going off.
No.
That was the other one. The second they're like, coming to the stage, Tanya. And I was like, oh my God, Mary J. Blige is going to sing. And I so badly wanted hateration, holleration in this dancery. And we did not get any of it because, again, I don't think they could afford the rights. But that's the weird part of this. But unlike other musicals, only occasionally does story continue to happen while music is happening. It happens in the title song where we kind of cut back and forth to a couple scenes. And then it happens in the gospel number. That's the one that it was her mom's favorite song, where it's like, it's about helping people.
Right.
That one, you kind of cut back and forth. But for the other musical numbers, it's just a musical number and nothing else happens. You're just watching a Mary J. Blige concert, not mad at it.
Right.
But that is why this movie is almost 2 hours long.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could cut probably 30 minutes out of it, but like the 30 minutes you'd end up cutting are like the only 30 minutes I like really like because it's just the songs and the songs are so good.
Yes.
Like everyone who's singing is amazing. And I realized that some of the songs are like empty chairs and empty tables without the like chorus in that song. It's like just exposition.
Right.
Which is weird to see sung from a stage like it's a performance of a song people should know. But like you wouldn't know a song that doesn't have a chorus. The adage is don't bore us, get to the chorus. It's not don't have one. It's insane to me.
And for those of you who are not music people, because I know there are sometimes when we talk about songwriting and stuff, people tune out, and I understand.
I get it.
The chorus is the part of the song you remember.
Yes.
Like if you're like, oh, we're halfway there, oh, living on a prayer. That's the chorus. That's the part we all remember. The verses are the parts in between. So if you don't have a chorus and it's just one long rambly verse, you're like, what's the name of this song? What's the part I should be singing along at? Should I sing along? And the answer is no. Gladys Knight is here to take us to church. So like, just let her be. But like, it makes it difficult to get into it because you're kind of like, where is this going? And I promise I will wrap up after this, but go ahead.
Hang on.
Yes.
You were talking about burns or something getting blown off earlier in a way, and we can't talk about it on the podcast.
Oh yeah, we can't talk about it because of a famous person.
Yeah, I want to tell you one thing that happened to me in high school, my freshman year in chorus. That's very similar, and it was related to singing, right? Because it was in chorus.
Okay.
I walked up, and I was the first person on the piano, and the accompanist was like, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Is it a solo?" And she was like, "Not unless you sing solo. No one can hear you. There's other people coming." I was like, God damn, Miss Poston. Holy shit. I come to learn that lady was like awesome. But she had a very like sort of silly, dark sense of humor. By the way, she was like 65 at the time.
Good for her. Because that's a street joke. Like that joke has existed forever, but well-placed street jokes always wonderful.
I know. I was like, God, that hurt.
I still don't know if it hurts as bad as the one I witnessed.
No, it wouldn't.
I'll give a Cliff Notes version that doesn't have information about it.
Take out names. Take out names. Take out
locations.
Right.
I was at an event with a famous person. That famous person and I were talking, and someone came up to them and definitely was trying to hit on the famous person.
Paige, I'm not that famous, but thank you.
I mean, you're welcome. The famous person turned to that person and just said, "Oh, you're still here?" And it's
that's so rough. That's the worst. It hurts so bad. Like,
oh God. Like withering. And I watched it happen, and all I could think was like, if I was in that girl's shoes, I've told the story like 3 or 4 times now, even just today, because I'm like, I can't believe I got to see it. Like it was so insane. But it was like I would be turned to ash. Like I would Alex smack into the floor and float away to my death because I can't believe.
Honestly, it would look exactly like what happens to the dude who looks at the Ark of the Covenant in Indiana Jones. Like you melt away into nothingness.
Just melting face. And this girl was undeterred. She just and I was like, no, girl.
Paige, not to refocus us back on the movie, but if my friend said things that were like sort of like, man, I love girls, and it didn't end with Scout cookies, I'm never talking to that person again. And like, it was insane to me that that's like a plot point in this movie. Like, it's real. It's gross. It's bad. By the way, Thin Mint.
Oh my God, yes. I have to go get some later.
Oh, shit. I dropped them. Sorry. Hang on.
Oh. The second that line happened early in the movie, I knew where it was going.
I know. Oh, you know. Yeah. It is Chekhov's pedophile or whatever we should call it. I don't know. But
I'm still going to call it pedophile.
It is. It very much is.
It made me angry. Okay, my last point about the movie.
Okay, yeah. Go.
Because it's a morality play, there are many, many plot points and notes that are impossible in 2025's Earth, that they just yada, 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 because they're like, yeah, we got to get to point A to point B to this story. No one has causality. People don't even have enough lines to establish motivations except for Jennifer. I think they actually do kind of a good job with Jennifer. However, there's one, and I will point it out when we get there. There's one section that is supposed to be dramatic and sad where they list a litany of bad things that have happened, but one of them is an urban legend from a Dare video, and I laughed out loud, Todd.
Which one was it? Which one? Hang on, because I don't remember that. Which one was it?
Oh, God. I kind of want to talk about it when we get there.
Okay, I'll put a pin in it, but I definitely want to know.
Put a pin in it.
But Paige, I completely agree. Like, nothing makes sense in this movie from like a actual what it's like to be alive in the world aspect, right? Like, the bad dude that she is dating, who was also married and has a family somewhere else.
Right. But also lives with her. And I'm like, how does this work?
He splits his time. Between the two families, one with kids, one without kids, and he likes it that way.
Yeah.
Like, he owns the house. I get why he'd leave at the end of the movie because, like...
He doesn't own the house.
He says he owns the house all the time. He's like, I pay the bills around here.
He pays the bills, but he doesn't own the house. It's her house.
Oh, well, then he should get the fuck out immediately. He's the worst.
Yes.
I thought he, like, owned the place. At the end when it happens and they were like, you got 3 minutes to get your shit and leave, I was like... He'll leave, I'm sure, because he doesn't want to call the cops, right? But, like, if he owns the house, y'all got to find a new place to live. So I'm glad that, like, at the end of this movie, he just can't come back there, and they're safe there. I was like, oh, I'm sure that the hunt for a new house starts tomorrow. But glad to know they didn't need to. That's good. Good.
She owns the house.
Good.
Because I believe Miss Wilma, I think, is the one that says, your dad left this house to you and your sister, and you've let it go to disrepair.
I must have been taking a note.
Yeah. So it's her house. Free and clear, I would assume, other than property taxes.
Yeah.
So,
which would cost her something, but that's not nearly as much as like a mortgage, right?
Sure. So when he said, I pay the bills, I assumed that he meant like water, electrical, cable, and such.
Oh, I assumed all that too. I just thought he also meant the mortgage, but I guess not.
No.
I just missed that one line, and that does explain it. But man, I'm glad. I'm glad about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just missed that.
Yep. But I mean, good. Yay.
I know. Yeah. Glad she owns the house because then he did all that work upstairs for nothing.
Right. If not, right? Well, we'll talk about it as we go through, but every time he kept doing the work and stuff and being like, yeah, I'm going to give this to the kids. I'm like, give what? You don't own any of it.
Right. I mean, like,
it's someone else's house, man.
I was like, calm down, Ryan Seacrest or whoever did Extreme Home Makeover. Like, it's not your house.
Ty Pennington.
He was like the home improvement version of Ryan Seacrest. I feel like that tracks.
Yeah. I do like, so I don't know if you recognize Sandito. It's not Santino, which would be the one I'm more familiar with. Sandito, I believe is his name.
His real name's Adam Rodriguez. Of course I recognize him.
Yes. Okay, because I was going to say, I was like, he's been on this podcast before in
yes.
Magic Mike XXL, where he had an idea for a frozen yogurt / DJ business. But he's way hotter in this.
He's also in a TV show called Roswell, and that was the first time I saw him back in 2001 to 2002, I believe. That was like a long time ago on the CW. Anyway, but yeah, I'm a fan of his. I've liked him since then, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to just talk about this movie? Because we will have stuff.
Yeah, we should just go through it. Yeah, let's do it scene by scene.
Okay. We open on the MC at the club introducing Taraji P. Henson, a.k.a. Miss April.
Not May, not June, but April. That's what he says. I was like, oh, this guy's done this before.
Crushing it.
Yeah.
And she sings an opening song that we get the credits. We get stuff kind of cut in between the credits. This opening song fucking slaps.
It's funky as shit. I loved it.
I loved it. When I heard this first one, I was like, oh, if this is what we're in for the rest of the movie, I am 112% on board. However, it does change a bit as we go.
Yeah, it does.
Some better than others.
What we don't know yet is that this is a bad thing she's doing.
Yeah, according to the movie, which I was like, she's just talented and working at what she's good at. Like, they do try to demonize her working at the club. And I'm like, demonize the drinking for sure, because she clearly has some unresolved trauma and it's showing itself in alcoholism.
Yes, absolutely it is. Yeah. And I think that she is, in this part of it, like she's just on stage singing. We don't have enough context to even know the movie thinks this is bad. It clearly does.
Right.
But I do agree. Like, she's just working. Her job is a lounge singer or more or less at this club. 6
nights a week, which means she's successful. I was like, do you know how hard it is to book anything 6 nights a week? Like, come on.
I assumed that she wasn't getting paid a lot of money for it, but yeah,
Sure.
6 nights a week, she's probably making enough to get by herself, right?
Right, 100%.
So like when the guy was like, I pay the bills around here, I was like, is she just like doing the singing stuff for free? Because she's good enough and seems like she works there, so I'm assuming she's getting paid something.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. But we cut back and forth between that and our first introduction on this podcast to Madea. Now, Madea wakes up because she hears something in her house. She thinks somebody is breaking in. She is not wrong. Somebody is breaking in.
3 little somebodies are breaking in.
Yeah.
It's 3 cute burglars in a trench coat, Paige.
Adorable. But before that, she wakes up Joe. Now, being slightly less familiar with the Madea cinematic universe.
The MCU?
The MCU.
That's the only abbreviation I've ever heard for MCU is Madea Cinematic Universe. Never heard anything else.
Definitely not one linked to that famous person's story earlier.
Shut up, Paige! Paige! No! You shut your... Paige? Oh, you're still here? Please.
Oh, you're still here?
Guys, I would encourage you, like, let me just lay out a scenario. You're at work. Working your ass off to support these kids or whatever, right? Your boss comes in and he's like, I need you to do X, Y, Z. And then like you like don't acknowledge him at all. And then he's like, hey, I'm talking to you. And you look up and say, oh, are you still here? And then you pack your shit and you leave because you just got fired. But it would have been hilarious.
I want to be clear. I fully support that man saying that.
Fully.
Because in the situation, it was appropriate.
Paige, stop narrowing it down. Stop narrowing it down. You keep giving like...
I'm sorry. Yeah, we can't.
By the end of this, you'll have his address, guys. She can't not reveal it piece by piece over the course of the episode if you listen to the clues.
Anyway, no, so the Madea Cinematic Universe, I am not as familiar. One would assume, or at least I did, since she and Joe live in the same house, that perhaps they are partners, husband and wife, something, but they have separate bedrooms, which like, I kind of understand. Sometimes you got to get a good night's sleep. And some people got, I don't know, whatever. Do your own thing in your own house.
I think that's way less uncommon than people think.
I think so too. But they also seem to dislike each other.
Yeah, I assume they were married. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like the trope in movies. It's like the old married couple hate each other. Like, that's not like reality, but that's like a trope in movies, right? That's why I assumed,
right?
That's why I called him Dadea, because I didn't know his name, and it was Madea and Dadea. Yeah. I don't know.
Joe.
I prefer mine. No, Dadea is way better.
Yeah. It makes sense. It tracks with the cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they go downstairs to see who is breaking into their house, and it is 3 children stealing a VCR. And I do love that Joe went down there only because his weed was down there. And I was like, priorities.
Been there.
I love that they turn the light on and they just go, oh, them children. And I was like, but it was something about the tone Here's the thing. Madea in this movie serves as a pressure valve release for dramatic moments. And sometimes the things that Madea and Joe say are unfucking hinged. But I kind of liked it. I was here for it. It made me want to watch more of the Madea cinematic universe just to see what's popping. So, I don't know if you felt the same way.
I don't know that I felt the same way, but I did, think it was weird how much he loved that VCR.
Same, because this was made recently.
It's 2009, Paige. I mean, I think that they play it off like even at the time in 2009, that's like old technology.
Yes. It's also an old ass VCR because it's one of the ones that pops up, not one of the ones that has like a regular slot.
No, you want it to pop up, Paige.
Oh, but if it pops up, then when you close it, it traps your dick in there.
That's what Dadea likes.
I mean, hey. No kink shame.
I don't like saying that's what Dadea likes. I feel like someone's going to enjoy that too much out there.
I don't know. I loved his story about Otis Redding coming over to watch a movie on that VCR, and that's why it was special.
Yeah, that's the reason for it to be special. I like Otis Redding, but I don't care if you were watching a video sitting on the dock of the bay.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make the VCR special.
You know what couldn't sit on the dock of the bay? That VCR, because the cord ain't long enough.
Exactly. You would just be pulling out there wasting time. Nailed it. Yeah. Guys, we got there. We figured it out.
We got it. Sitting here resting my bones. Anyway, so they're like, we're not going to call the cops if you learned your lesson. And here's the thing. I don't think she was ever going to call the cops. I think Madea was just trying to set shit right with whoever is the caretaker for these children.
Agreed.
Because she then immediately takes them to their Aunt April's house.
Right.
After trying to find their grandmother, which... Can we talk about that for a second? We find out in this scene that their grandmother, who is their primary caretaker, has been missing for 4 days.
Yeah, 4 full days.
4 full days.
She went to work 4 days ago and has been missing 4 days. The reason we're bringing it up, and I didn't want to talk about this until it came up in the movie unless you brought it up, because what, Paige?
Thank you.
If she's been missing 4 days, she died 2 days ago at least.
She did.
That's sad. I hate saying that. That's a reality. Like, I know the first 48 is the thing because of that show. And this is 2 days. This is 48 after the 48, guys.
I don't even think it was that from like a murder perspective, which is first 48. But like, vulnerably, transparently, I have a grandmother with dementia. I've already lost one grandmother to dementia. And that grandmother was gone for 8 hours longer than we expected. And we had the whole squad out because it's like an older person doesn't just pick up and abandon people. Like,
no,
that's when she did not come home from work that afternoon, that's when the search party should have started. Now, I will say the kids were alone in the house. They didn't know. Like, I don't expect the kids to make that phone call because they're kids, right?
Right. But the second an adult is alerted.
Thank you.
Yeah. Which they would be alerted by, I'm assuming, probably Jennifer, right? Because she's the oldest. Yeah.
Yes, because she's the oldest. We see 4 different adults get notified, get told that this woman has been missing for 4 days, and all of them do some version of, and one of those is her landlord. And we know that because she has keys to potentially let Taraji P. Henson into the house and won't do it because of something that happened with Taraji P. Henson's sister.
Yeah, and Taraji P. Henson is one of them too. She does not go looking for
she
her
does not
mother,
call.
who has been missing for 4 days. I did not stutter. That is FOR days.
Yes, she goes to the house and was like, she's not there. I don't know. We haven't talked in a year. Which, here's the thing. I understand people have complicated relationships with their parents, so I understand how you could go a year or more without talking to them. I get it. But if someone told me, hey, this elderly person has been missing for 4 days, I'm immediately like, let's go into her house because we're probably going to find a body. Like that. Here's the thing. When we get to once they finally figure out that she's dead, we got to talk about that because that's not at all how that system works. that it is a bonkers scene of like, and this happened, this happened, this happened.
Oh, wait. You're telling me that a preacher would never have to go in and tell someone, oh, hey, your mom died.
No.
Oh, and also she died alone on a bus. Oh, and also she laid unclaimed so long they cremated her. Yeah, like that's a trifecta of awful.
Not only is it awful, but table it for when we get there.
Okay,
because
yeah, sure.
That's literally not how the system works.
No shit. But the person who wrote this has no idea. And the people who watch it have no idea. Because I don't know how the system works. I think I know enough common sense to know that's not how it works, but I don't know exactly how it works. And it probably varies state to state.
That's only the second most egregious, fantastical thing that happens in this movie that you're like, that's not possible at all. Like that's not how that works. What? We'll get to it when we get to it. Anyway, so she takes them back to April's house and April's like, I don't fucking know these kids. And before they get to her house, we do get a flash of April kind of at closing, falling asleep at the bar, stealing a bottle, stumbling home to Randy, who was supposed to pick her up and didn't. So she had to walk home alone. Randy is the guy that she is dating, who is married. And his wife calls to be like, I'm having another baby. And she asks, did you get popped? Meaning like, did you get arrested? Is that why you're not home? And he's like, no. And then he does not give her a reason for why he's not home.
Right. Yeah, Randy's a terrible dude. We know that instantly. Because it's revealed that they're together, Randy and Taraji P. Henson.
He basically lives at April's house.
Yes, yeah. But is married and has one kid already and one kid on the way. Like, he's a terrible guy. We know already.
He has 3 kids already with one on the way.
There you go.
He's about to have 4 kids.
Crazy.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Crazy. But he's like, oh, I hate kids. I don't want any kids. I can't believe she's having another kid. But he's, on the phone with his wife. He's like, no, I'm happy. And it's like, bro. Anyway, so she goes back to sleep. He gets up, I would assume, to go to work somewhere.
Yeah, I assumed.
But at 12:30, that's when Madea shows up with the grandkids. And they're like, I haven't seen her in 4 days.
I love it when they show up, they do the, she comes to the door all mad because they were knocking on it. She's like, do you know what time it is? And she's like, 12:30.
Yeah.
And so like they do that bit.
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. It's 12:30.
Yeah. They do that bit like 4 times throughout the movie with other people because she sleeps during the day and works at night. I thought that was so funny.
Right. Which the whole movie wants to demonize her for.
I know.
And I'm like, homegirl getting home at like 4 a.m. I don't know what time her sets are. And now, again, the alcoholism is not great.
That is a problem.
Right?
The fact that she works nights as a singer is not a problem.
Is not the problem.
Right.
But the movie's just like, how dare she sleep in past 9?
I know, right? Like she might be a nurse that works overnights.
Right.
Like it's not like it's a thing that it's not a problem if you work overnight. Movie.
Right. Well, and he's like, you're sleeping your life away. At one point, I was like, she works at night.
I know. She's not sleeping her life away. She's working opposite hours from you. Like that's not the same thing.
What are you talking about?
That person just doesn't understand that when they're asleep, other people are awake.
Right. Working so that things are available. Yeah.
Keeping you safe.
Oh, God. I love that Madea is just like $300 for my window and the VCR, which ain't no way. But she's like, I don't have it. So like I could drop the kids off to like work it off or whatever. And she's like, okay, fine. But this is that we're literally only a few minutes into the movie because the first 15 minutes of this movie creates a Game of Thrones level amount of characters related to each other in ways that you have to keep track of as a viewer in order for the plot to make any kind of sense.
Counterpoint, you don't have to pay attention to it. And just
it don't make sense.
Just like lean into not knowing what's going on half the time.
Yep. But this is where we find out that Manny, one of the children, Manny has asthma, and we will find out other things as well. Byron doesn't really speak.
Yeah.
And Jennifer is the 16-year-old that is kind of taking care of them.
Yeah.
So they get dropped off at their aunt's house. It ain't going well. And the 2 boys stay, but Jennifer is like, I'm not staying here. I'm going to go out. We will find out what happens to her in a second. Meanwhile, we go to the church seemingly across the street where the romantic male lead shows up in what I can only describe as like a comically bad wig and mustache beard combo where they were like, hey, do you have like a Spirit Halloween Charlie Manson costume? And they're like, yeah, just put that on the guy. Like, we can't let them see how hot he is yet. So he comes up and he's like, hey, I'm from a church that you used to do missions with in Colombia. I came here to find a better life, but it's been tough. But I'm a skilled handyman, willing to work for whatever you can help me out with. Great. Good. Great.
I did think it was really funny that the pastor was like, when he walked up and he was like, I'm from that church you would do mission work with.
Yeah.
The pastor goes, what's your full name? And I was like, God damn. Like, you're going to, like, do you want his social? Like, you want his full name? I thought it was crazy. Not like, what's your name? What's your full name, sir? If you're really from the church I do mission work with, what's your full name then?
Can I also get your date of birth and the county you were conceived in and your mother's maiden name?
Where'd your mom get gushed?
Where? Anyway, I do think it is wild. So, because what happens is they catch Jennifer stealing, and she's stealing syringes.
Yeah.
Now, because her mom was an addict, they are worried about the fact that she was stealing syringes. Hey, Todd.
Yes.
Do you know how you get syringes?
At any local needle exchange where they give them out for free. But yeah.
That's not what's depicted in the film.
No. It looks like she goes to a drugstore to get them.
Yeah.
Which is wild. But yeah, I don't know that you can do that.
They're not. Syringes are not just out, because it's presented as if she just shoplifted syringes like candy bars. And I'm like, no.
I fully think she was planning on shoplifting insulin too.
Yes.
At a certain point in this movie, right? Like,
we gotta fucking talk about the insulin, because that was the thing that I'm like, this is the most. No, wait for it. Table it. We'll talk about it when we get to it, because it's a while from now. Anyway, she was stealing the syringes, and they're like, well, we got to take her back to April's house. And then they like volunteer April's house to host the handyman. And they're like, he could fix stuff in your house and then stay here. And I'm like, if somebody volunteered my house to other people, like, no.
Oh, yeah. But the pastor knows how to get her back to church.
Yeah.
He knows to bring her back to the Lord is going to be through a deep dickin'. And so he's like, I got to get an anchor, like, member in that household that she will want to slide up on, and that'll get her back in these chapel pews or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it works. It's a perfect plan.
It works.
Get her from the inside, Paige.
I mean...
Inside her house, you pervs. Inside her house.
Sure, with a come hither motion. But this is also the point at which the pastor and Miss Wilma Miss Wilma, by the way, Gladys Knight,
right,
are informed that her grandmother, who they know personally and is a member of the church, has been missing for 4 days. And they're literally like, weird.
Man, I hope she comes back at some point. Like, Taraji P. Henson, most of this movie is like, man, y'all better hope mom comes back. Because, like, and you're like, ma'am, your mom died a few days ago and nobody gives a shit. Like, what is happening? It's been days. It's been 4 days. And it goes to a 5th day. Guys.
Yes.
Absolutely. Should call the cops. What are you doing?
They are all reacting as if she left on vacation without telling anybody.
Right?
And I'm like, what is happening?
Like she ran off with some dude she met on the internet. Like that's what it sounds like right now.
Okay, but what a great movie that would be.
Just like Morris Chestnut going after a gilf.
Oh.
Paige. It'd be like every Nicole Kidman movie we've watched in the past year.
I'm gonna make you watch Baby Girl, motherfucker.
Paige, I didn't say it was a bad thing. Get your gilf on, girl. Paige, are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that are making eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. You can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks. And honestly, there's a lot of more add-ons too. There's a lot of more add-ons too that are great. You should check them out. They're pretty great. They have like 40 options across like, I think it's 8 dietary preferences. Don't fact check me on that. It's something like that though. But you can check on their menu each week. It's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals because you can choose from things like Calorie Smart or Keto, or I think they have a Protein Plus one too. And the best thing is Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, which is perfect for any like active, super busy lifestyle, which is why it's so great for me. So eat smart with Factor by getting started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's like half off your first box and free shipping, guys. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping off your first box. Do it. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. So you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Perfect for any active or busy lifestyle, which is perfect for me. I have had to travel so much, I'm barely at home. And when I am, I don't want to spend that time grocery shopping. So Factor is awesome for that. I just come in, throw it in the microwave, 2 minutes, heat and eat. It's the best. And Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and I really love the grab-and-go snacks too, but for similar reasons. It's just really convenient. So eat smart and get started at factormeals.com/romancingthepod50off. Use code romancingthepod50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code romancingthepod50off. That's such a crazy code. I'm so sorry. But use it to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
Anyway. So they're like, she's missing. Weird. So they take her back to April's house along with the handyman and are like, twofer. Here you go. We volunteered your house for these children and this stranger that you have never met. And we're fine with them just living unattended in your house.
I did think that was a pretty wild choice by them to be like, hey, I don't really know this dude. I guess I went to his church once and did some work there, but I don't know, he seems nice. Do you mind letting him stay in your house? Single woman?
I know he looks like Spirit Halloween Charles Manson.
But wait till he loses that terrible wig and mustache and you will want to provide a mustache for him.
Yeah, wait till he shaves and he's a total smoke show.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she brings the kids back in and again, they're all like, stealing syringes? You a crackhead like your mom. And she's just like, shut up. And I'm like, clearly she's not. I was like, she's clearly not. And in the back of my head, from the second they were like, we found her shoplifting syringes, I was like, diabetes. I immediately knew it was not what everyone was accusing her of.
The second they were like, are you doing crack? It could have cut to me dressed as Walter Brimley being like, it's diabetes. We know what it is. And it's not for her.
Wilford Brimley.
What did who did I say?
Walter, you always say Walter. It's a Jean-Claude Van Damme for you, I think.
Yeah, it's probably because he's not important to my life, so I don't really take the time to learn his real name. And that's fine. And it's something that I struggle with.
There you go.
Wilford.
Okay. Wilford Brimley. Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to get it wrong again.
I can't wait till we do Cocoon on one of the podcasts and you have to say it for a whole episode. But so she sets the Sandito, the handyman, up in the basement and gives him a razor, which he will then use and then suddenly be hot. Convenient. He's plot hot for the movie. He gets a plot haircut. It's great.
It works though.
We don't see it. He just shows up hot later. Anyway, he then starts to kind of learn and hang out with the kids.
Yeah.
But this is where we get more of a look of Taraji P. Henson's house. And it has one of my favorite movie faux pas that this is going to be a little bit of kind of like Paige's Antique Corner.
Well, excuse me while I lean in, Paige.
I love mid-century modern design. We've talked about it many times on the podcast. I feel like I don't need to explain myself further. I fucks heavy with mid-century.
I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've ever heard this. Hang on, what?
Really? You mean, what about the time I dragged you through 4 floors of an antique store in Kansas City, which I plan on doing again?
No, Paige, I was fully joking.
Yeah. Oh, no, yes.
I've been to your house.
Yeah. Movies do this thing where they want to make a house look poor or run down. And so they're like, well, we'll put old furniture in there. You have to choose your old furniture carefully. And a lot of times they don't because they're still doing set deck and they want it to look nice. And so this movie makes a mistake that so many other movies make. And that is translating old furniture to mid-century modern furniture, which you may not know is super expensive.
Yeah.
So she has a Lane coffee table. I know that because I have the matching side tables to her coffee table. that coffee table is worth about $500 alone, just as is. If she just put it on the sidewalk or put it on Facebook Marketplace, $500. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. They didn't realize it was a Lane coffee table. And then as we go around the house, I was like, swag lamps, couches, drip glaze lamps. I was like, whoever set decked this loves mid-century, but didn't realize that in trying to make this house look poor, they made it look way more expensive.
I actually do kind of wonder if, so like, that furniture, maybe at some point in her family, they bought it when it was just like new furniture, right?
I'm assuming it's her dad's. Yeah.
Like they can't afford to buy new furniture. So it's just the shitty furniture they have because it's been used furniture for like
forever.
And when I say used, I mean like used and not really like taken great care of, right?
Sure.
For 60 years or whatever, or at this point, maybe 50 years. But like it didn't cost her anything. I realize that it's come back in fashion. It would now be more expensive, but like I also understand why she'd still have it.
Here's the thing. Within the story, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, but the set deck would be expensive.
The set deck would be so fucking expensive. Within the story, it makes sense. However, they have the era wrong.
Okay.
Because let's say Taraji P. Henson is around 30 in 2009.
That was the vibe I got from the movie.
Right? That puts her 10 years off of me, right?
Yeah.
So my parents' generation of when they were first buying furniture would have been right around when they were getting married in like 1982. So I would say Taraji P. Henson's parents were probably buying their furniture
like
in
70s,
the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And all the furniture in her house is late 50s, early to mid 60s. So it is 10 years too early. Like if it had been 70s, that actually would look closer to what I would expect for that story.
Yeah.
But this is just Paige's antique nerdery corner.
I'm into it.
Because it did make her house look cool as shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I dig this house. But then the more I was like, I dig this. Oh yeah. Oh, I have a drip glaze lamp like that. Yeah.
I dig it because like I think I own most of this shit and it was expensive.
It took me many, many years to cobble it together over time.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Like a lot of it you have to go find. Like we had to go antiquing
you have
for
to
some
find
stuff.
it.
Like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I now at my like career level where I travel a lot when I know I'm going to a place and I will have time to antique, I bring a second suitcase.
Nice.
Or in the case of Kansas City, we went and bought a second suitcase.
We did, yeah.
Because I found all
100%.
that Atomic Franciscan.
Yeah.
And but it's because it's way cheaper outside of California and you do have to kind of hunt for it. But anyway, yeah, I thought it was funny how many things in the house that I was like, that's worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
That table, so much money.
You're like, oh, I hope I catch this soon in like an estate sale.
Yeah, right? I was like, did they sell off this set? Because like... Y'all doing like a studio clear out, whatever. Randy comes home as all this is happening.
I love that he comes home having left the house with just his girlfriend / affair partner living there. And he returns to a house that now has a tenant and 3 children.
3 children.
Yeah. Which he has at his home.
Yeah.
Is a wife and 3 kids.
Right.
Now he's just getting it on both sides. Has no one thought about Randy and how Randy feels? That's what I'm getting at. Actually, fuck Randy. He's terrible. I hate him.
Fuck Randy. But this is where he meets Sandino for the first time. And we know from the conversations that have happened earlier that Sandino is from Colombia. And he just goes, sup, Mexico? And people tell him in the scene, they're like, he's from Colombia. Mexico. Like, he never calls him anything but Mexico, signifying early on that he is trash. He a shit person.
At least sort of racist.
Yeah, at minimum.
Yeah, I mean, he gets way worse. So, like, yeah.
This is the scene that kind of sets the stage for how bad this is going to get.
Yeah.
Because this is where he turns to Jennifer and he's like, oh, you think you grown? I've got something for girls that think they grown. And I was like, this is just like the scene in Atonement with Benedict Cumberbatch and the chocolate bar. This is not okay. But then it doesn't come back to it until much later. So I kind of hoped that we were going to get through the movie without it.
Yeah.
But no.
I knew when this happened that we were going to get it because he's also a bad guy.
Yeah.
But they have to create space between him and Taraji P. Henson. And I knew that this was how they were going to create that space.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shit, I guess we're going there.
Yeah. He also calls Byron a fat ass, and I didn't like that for Byron. Byron didn't deserve that. He's just trying to exist. But also, everyone's kind of questioning why Byron doesn't talk. Byron is incredibly traumatized.
Yeah.
Poor baby Byron. I just wanted to give him a hug.
They all are, honestly.
Yes.
I mean, Jennifer is only operating out of, like, crisis.
Yes.
And And she feels like she's the oldest and she feels responsible for her younger brothers, which I understand why she feels that way. So like, I understood why they were all reacting the way they were, like, because they are all going through intense trauma and sadness and grief. It's terrible.
Yes. Yeah. But she then takes the kids to Medea's house. And Medea's like, I'll straighten them out. I'm the horse whisperer. And at one point tells them that she'll hit them. I've been to jail, which she has. That's a call out to Madea Goes to Jail, another Madea Cinematic Universe movie. But she says, I'll hit you so hard, your cranium and your skull will fuse with your urethra and you'll only be able to pee and run. And I was like, creative.
Yeah.
But also don't hit kids so bad that their cranium fuses with their skull and their urethra.
That's like 80% of Madea and Dadea's humor is child abuse.
Right.
In this movie, at least.
In this movie. So we then cut to Miss Wilma shows up at the club where April's about to work. And she's just like, hey, have you seen your mom lately? Because finally Miss Wilma's like, we need to search, round up flashlights, walkie-talkies. Like, we gotta find this lady.
Yeah, did she leave on a midnight train to Georgia? Like, we all should be able to find her.
Leaving on that midnight train to Georgia.
I'm afraid that someone got a license to kill and shot your mama or something like that. Like,
right.
But it's neither one of us that are gonna find her.
Right.
She might be out there missing you, Taraji P. Henson.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just like working in all the Gladys Knight titles I could into that sentence. I think all those were Gladys Knight, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll see. The chat will keep me honest.
Anyway, she basically is like, can you let me into her house to see if I can figure it out? And she's like, no, because
I thought this was so sad.
The last time I did that, your sister robbed her blind. Which part of me is like, okay, but just go with her.
Right?
Like April's doesn't have the same addiction problems as her sister. Like, go with her, figure this out. But no, we cut back to Medea's house where she turns to Jennifer and is like, you have the nastiest attitude. Why are you so nasty? I was like, what a crazy thing to say to a teenager. But also, I'm going to start saying it to every teenager I meet.
I don't think you should say it. I don't think you should be like, you nasty.
Why are you so you nasty?
Don't say that to a child, Paige, please.
No, I'll just be like, oh, you're still here?
They'll go home and be like, how'd you get that on your chest? Be like, Paige branded me when I got to her house with oh, you're still here? Oh, are you? Oh, John, you're still here, John?
Oh, God. Anyway, but she's like, hey, you're pretty and like you do have stuff to smile about. Life can get better. It's kind of roundabout and maybe not articulated in the best way, but that's what she's trying to get at.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, you have worth. You are, there are things that are cool about you. Like, it's okay. You are not your circumstances, I think is more what she's trying to say.
I think that is what she's trying to say. She's like, you're very pretty. You have a lot to be thankful for. Even if you don't have money,
right?
You have a lot going right in your life. I felt like it was the right message for Madea to give at that moment, right? Because it's
at that particular moment. Yeah.
And then she tells her a story that is word for word from the Bible, right?
No, that's later.
Oh,
that's
shit.
later, but
we'll
get to it.
My bad.
We will get to it because there's a piece in it that I was like, wait, do they mean this person or this person? And then I, like, 2 lines later, I was like, I could have written this joke. Yes. Like, high fives all around Madea. Anyway, but we cut back to the club where Gladys Knight sings the song that doesn't have a chorus, but we don't care because it's Gladys Knight and her voice is still beautiful.
2 minutes into her song, I wrote, Gladys Knight's a goddamn national treasure, and I love that we're getting all of this song.
I have that in my notes too. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen with you really fast and prove this to you. Like, Gladys Knight is a national treasure.
Paige, okay, all right, I can see it. Look, goddamn Gladys Knight is a damn national treasure. And yes, I spelled pedophile like that. You made me watch this movie. It's your fault.
It's my fault. I also have right below Gladys Knight is a national treasure. These are mediocre songs sung by incredible talents.
Yeah.
Because that's absolutely true. Because literally, again, this is the song with no chorus where I was like, who wrote this? But also Gladys Knight is fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
she's Gladys Knight.
She's Gladys Knight.
She don't need no pips.
She don't.
I do like when they're there, but she don't need them.
I do like when they're there though, but she doesn't need them. But this is the thing with the plays that these movies come out of, where like Michelle from Destiny's Child was doing like a whole string of these for a while. Like Usher did some back in the day. R. Kelly came up doing these. And I know that's a bad example because he's a horrible person. But I'm just saying that like a lot of people who work as musicians come up through these plays because they are truly catering to people with immense vocal talent to showcase that vocal talent. Even if it's not like a catchy song, it's still, you still are just like, well, Gladys Knight is incredible. Like that's what you come away from this with.
I mean, that's what I came away from this with. And honestly, I think we all owe Gladys Knight an apology when she tried to rat out R. Kelly when she sang the parody version of her own song on Leaving on a Midnight Train to Georgia.
Oh.
When she was like, 'cause he's peeing on an adolescent from Georgia.
Oh.
And they were like, oh, Gladys, you're so funny. They could have busted it.
It's like, no, there's nothing funny about this.
No, serious. Stop laughing, chat.
Okay, but I'm deadly serious about the next thing I'm going to say.
Oh, God, okay.
If Gladys Knight ever wants to cover Ignition, the remix, I'm here for it 100%.
Holy shit. Hell yeah. 100%.
So good. Anyway, so the kids come home and Sandino is there and they're like, oh my God, I'm never going to steal anything again if that's what I have to do to pay for it. And he's like, hey, every decision has a price.
Yeah.
Like that is what it is. And this is the craziest part of the movie because he comes home and he's like, got insulin in a bag, in a pharmacy bag. And again, it implied that she was going to steal it, but he just went and bought the insulin for them. And at this point I was like, okay, but how? And I realized that if you live in another country that is not America, it might be easier to just get insulin over the counter or something. In America, that don't exist. You have to have a prescription for it and you have to pick it up at a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And he don't even know these children's last names or medical numbers or anything. You can't just go buy insulin for shits and giggles. Like it's prescribed to you. And so I was like, how did he go get the kids insulin? It's impossible. It's impossible. The movie doesn't understand that it's impossible.
I looked it up and you can buy insulin syringes without a prescription at pharmacies, but it varies state by state.
Syringes, yes. He bought the actual insulin itself.
Right? Like, I thought that might have been the distinction that they just didn't realize, that you could buy syringes, but not just like a bucket of insulin or not a bucket, but like one of the puncture tube things,
And here's the thing. You can buy syringes at drugstores, but they're not just out. Right? You have to go to the counter and be like, I need to buy X amount of syringes.
It would be difficult to shoplift because you have to go ask someone to get it for you. And then you'd be like, hey, before I pay for it, can you hand it to me?
Right.
And then you run.
But the insulin itself, you can't just like that. You need the prescription information.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway. But this also was clearly shot a different day because this is supposed to be like the next day and he's got like a week's worth of hair growth and they didn't bother to cut his hair again. So like it's clear they had him at two different times and shot as much as they could at each time because his hair changes scene to scene. Anyway, we cut to the next day where he's literally ripping up the parquet floor. And bro, no, what?
This is where she comes out and she's like, do you know what time it is? And he's like, it's 1:30 p.m., ma'am.
Right.
Do you know where the kids are? You're waking them up. And she's like, and he goes, they left a while ago.
Yeah, they left before I got up is what he said.
You're the only one who's sleeping away your life, night owl, night worker. Like she works at night.
Night worker, working your night job. But he basically is like, I'm going to fix this room up for them. And she's like, hey, about that, this is my house.
Right. He never gets her to agree to this, but he also never stops doing it. I get that it is so kind. It is such a nice thing he's doing. So like, I'm going to kind of let it slide, but she never says this is okay. And this is fully her house.
Anyway, she's like, well, okay, fine, you can help out, but only until Mama comes back. And who should show up but Pastor and Miss Wilma? And they're like, hi, can we come in? I was like, oh, good. We finally found the mom's body. It's like, I knew that's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what they tell her happened.
Paige, the way it escalates made me laugh by the end of it. Because at first you're like, oh, of course she's dead. We knew this.
Yeah,
Why is
we knew
everyone
that.
acting like this was not what was gonna happen, right? It is still sad either way. Like there's nothing not sad about that moment, but the movie is like reacting like, "Oh my God, I would never have guessed she was dead. I just thought she was missing for 5 full days."
Well, and here's the thing. I understand Jennifer not calling because she knows if she calls, they're going to get put in foster care. 100%.
I got that too. But the second she told anybody days ago, they should have called.
Any adult should have called.
Yeah.
Anyway, the story they give her is that her mom left for work, got on the bus, had a brain aneurysm, died on the bus, sat on the bus all day, and at the end of the bus driver's shift, he tried to wake her up to take her off the bus and realized at that point she had passed away.
Right.
After that, they took her to the morgue where she was unclaimed for 5 days. And at that point, they just cremated her and put her in a lovely velvet box that Prince would have loved. Now, let's break this down piece by piece because a lot of it doesn't make sense.
Paige, when the pastor was like, "Listen, Taraji P. Henson, your mama's dead. But not only that, she went unclaimed for 5 days. But not only that, she got burned to death." Or not burned to death, but she got cremated.
She got cremated.
But wait, there's more. She's in this awesome velvet box in a beautiful vase.
Gorgeous urn, velvet box.
I was like, is Steve Harvey going to come out and like present this to her? It looked very opulent. I was like, this is amazing.
In my headcanon, the church paid for the urn and the box.
Definitely.
And that is the one part that makes sense to me.
That's the only way it makes sense. There's no way the state is going to provide someone whose body they didn't know it was until this morning with an opulent urn and velvet box combo.
Let's get into all of the pieces of the story that don't make sense.
Yes. Let's start with the braneurysm, Paige. That's the only part that does make sense. We can say it makes sense and move on to the most stuff that doesn't make sense.
It makes sense. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Here's what doesn't make sense. So 2 things. 1, after someone dies, often their body will void their bowels or any number of things,
Paige,
and the body does start decomposing.
Paige, you had to bring this up. She just wanted to go in church, and she was on a bus, so she was like, I have to make my own pew. Nailed it! I'm so proud of that joke. I thought of it 2 seconds before you stopped talking. Oh my God.
Pew.
Guys, I'm going to go ahead and report to hell. Everyone, I had a good run. Thank you, guys.
So that part 1 of like...
She would have stunk up that bus immediately.
The bus would have noticed, right?
Yeah. They would have at least have been like, hey, this very sleepy lady seems to have shit herself.
Yes. Can someone wake her up? Can something, right?
Yes.
So like that's part 1. But let's say for argument's sake, for some reason her body didn't do that and she went unnoticed for a few hours. That happens, right? That happens.
Yeah, maybe she just took a great shit. We don't know.
Right? The bus... I guess it depends on bus routes, but I'm assuming that the bus driver didn't like, well, they said she sat on the bus all day, which means she absolutely would have started smelling and any number of things all day.
Yeah.
Right? She also probably would have fallen forward or rigor would have set in. Like,
oh, why?
Yeah.
She's on a bus that's moving throughout the course of every moment of every day. She definitely would have fallen over. Yeah.
100%. And so like, let's argument's sake say none of that happened. Let's say it happens as the story says it does. The bus driver at the end of the day finds her, can't wake her up, calls 911. She ends up in the morgue. Okay. What is the very next thing the morgue does? Tries to find next of kin. And they're like, well, she didn't have any ID on her. I was like, that's fine. Lots of people die without ID on them. That's what dental records and fingerprints and all these things are for. And medical records and any number of things that like day 3 or 4, someone would have been knocking on Taraji P. Henson's door to be like, hey, your mom that you probably don't even know is missing at this point
is
died
dead.
And we need you to identify the body. Also, 5 days, that is not enough time for them to just like, burn it. They'd still be looking for next of kin at 5 days.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I mean, unless the department just got a new, like, I don't know who makes them, but like, let's just say Traeger, like
cremation grill,
cremation machine or whatever, right? Like I doubt, like they're not like really amped to use those things, so they probably would put that on hold for as long as possible.
Right.
I do realize after like a good number of days, just because some people do legit just go forever unclaimed, they do have to do that kind of stuff eventually.
Of course.
But 5 days seemed callously short. It's honestly, Paige, led me to my theory that she was murdered.
Ooh.
And they just had to burn her up to get rid of the evidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a piece that I just thought of as we've been sitting here. In order for them to determine that she had a brain aneurysm, they had to do an autopsy.
Yeah.
Which means that she was at least there for 2 or 3 days while they're doing the autopsy. And they would have pulled dental records and everything. Like, They would have figured out who she was.
They're not going to care about how this person died and not also care about who this person was.
Who they were.
Right.
Yes. And if you're doing an autopsy, you're definitely not getting just like 5 days. You're out. Like,
shit, guys. We hit 5 days on this old lady. I guess we got to throw her out.
Oh, my God.
Her sell-by date was technically yesterday, so I guess we have to throw her away. I don't know.
Well, and what? So I assume that the movie believes that what happened was Miss Wilma reported her missing, and then the police went through like recent dead bodies or whatever, and they matched.
That's what I assumed as well.
At that point, the authorities would contact Taraji P. Henson because she would have to make the ID.
No, Paige, they're definitely going to release the cremated remains of Taraji P. Henson's mother to a stranger who says he's her pastor.
Right.
And also possible murderer, Paige. We don't know, but we do know she got burned up suspiciously fast.
Ooh. But yeah, so this entire story don't make much sense.
It didn't make much sense. And because it went from like bad because she's found dead or whatever, all the way through to she's cremated, but we have these wonderful parting gifts. Like I laughed when he revealed the urn, and I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
It's so sad, compounding to a gift. It was so funny to me.
It is bonkers. The only thing that made me laugh harder was the very next scene, because they leave and she is left to kind of grieve alone with Sandino. And he basically is trying to walk her through it. And he's like, hey, do you want company? Which is great, asking, because sometimes people don't. Sometimes people just want to feel the feels alone.
Yeah.
And he kind of walks over and is like, when was the last time you talked to your mom? And she was like, a year ago. We got into an argument. It was so stupid. But like my sister, who has passed away, we know the sister said, she had such an addiction problem that the kids have been through a lot. We find out that she traded Jennifer for crack when she was 9, which holy shit. Like, no wonder Jennifer's having a rough time.
Yeah.
But then the next one, and I know they tried to make it seem, they're trying to build up like, oh my God, this was so terrible, these poor kids. But the next one, she's like, she accidentally put Byron in the oven. And I was like, that's an urban legend. Like that's from a Dare video of like, the babysitter who smoked weed and microwaved the baby. Like, that's not a nonsense satanic panic story. And then she's like, and then she burned Manny with her crack pipe. I was like, okay, no, that's back to real. But the oven one in the middle, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? What are you talking about?
Hang on, are you not supposed to put babies in the microwave? Because like, how do you get them dry after a bath?
Oh, you got to do spin cycle.
Oh, the dryer. That makes sense, Paige. Okay. Guys, don't put your babies in ovens or dryers. I don't know why you would have to say that. I don't know who would do that, but
you shouldn't. But it's an ongoing urban legend that everyone is like, there was this girl got high and put a baby in the microwave or the oven. it's never like been proven to be true. It is just an urban legend that persists. But this movie says it, like, not only is it true, but this lady did it. And I was like,
well, and that baby's fine. So like, did she just like put him in the oven and like he was like putting him to bed?
well, he's the one that doesn't talk.
Do you think he burned his ears away? Like what do you think he lost? He does say some things, so he can talk.
Later. He can talk, but he is traumatized and does not speak much.
Yeah.
But apparently the thing that happened to him is he was placed in an oven, which again would be traumatizing and terrible, but it's like the way they're presenting it is exactly the urban legend. And that's what made me laugh. And then I was like, I can't take this seriously anymore. I'm so sorry.
At the size I could have easily been put in the oven, I would not retain any memories of it. So like,
sure,
I probably wouldn't have any trauma from that. Although if it was like when I was 6 and my mom like forced me in the oven, that's a different story.
That's a different story.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm about to say what I'm going to say.
Me either, Paige. The scandal. He's from the Madea cinematic universe.
When I cooked Thanksgiving this year, I did a 20-pound turkey. So it's like the size of like a small 2-year-old. Like a very small 2-year-old. And that thing took up most of the oven. So I'm going to say max 3-year-old in the oven. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah.
So sorry.
If you survive it, you know, you're probably not going to remember it.
Probably not.
It's a big if though.
Anyway, so then she's like talking to him and she's crying because she's like, I can't believe that like she died on a bus alone. But then I had a thought of like brain aneurysm, tragic and sudden though it is a quick death. And so it's like over fast, like before you even realize what's happening. And so she's like, she was on a bus alone. I was like, she didn't know that. Like by the time it was happening, she was dead. She was on the bus 1 minute and singing with the choir invisible the next minute. Like that. It's honestly like if I could pick a way to go, it's that. Because by the time I'm even conscious that I'm going, I'm gone already.
100%.
Just like boom.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually... Just I was at a convention and the keynote speaker was a guy named Alex Honnold. Did you know who that is?
That name does sound familiar.
He is the guy who climbed El Capitan Free Solo or El Cap.
Got it.
Free Solo. There's a documentary on Netflix about him called Free Solo, and it's great. You should watch it. He did the keynote, and because we were my company sponsored the event, we got to meet him. Anyway, someone asked, and they were like, "Are you not afraid to like die and fall to your death?" And he goes, "I am. But I'm much more afraid to die slowly than I am to die very fast. So it is scary. I'm always scared up there, but I know if I slip, it'll be over instantly.
Yep.
I'll be scared for a few seconds while I'm falling, possibly hurt as I'm spinning down the rock or whatever, but it'll be over quickly."
I feel the same way.
And I was like, God damn, this dude is like so logical that it is illogical to me. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
That is such a hyper logical way to look at it. It was honestly very interesting to me. He was such a cool dude.
I flew on a very small jet this morning to get home.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to happen. It was booked. And many, many people tried to talk me into canceling my flights to not go to the thing where I got to witness that insane interaction.
Yeah.
And my comment was, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I can't control it. And if it was a plane crash, I would probably die instantly. And I would have just been on the plane 1 minute and off at the next, unless we crashed in a mountain range like the Himalayas, like that one group on last podcast on left. But there's not one of those between here and the place that I was going. And so I kind of was just like, look, I got to get to where I got to go. And if it's my time to go, there's nothing I could do to change that.
Yeah, I get that. And if you go that way, you get to hang out with the Big Bopper and Buddy Holly. It's great.
Right?
Yeah. Don McLean is required to write another verse to American Pie and include your name. Like, those are the requirements if you're semi-famous and die in a plane accident.
I think it's hilarious that in your mythology for this, you get to hang out with whoever died the same way as you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Paige, can I just tell you a true story of the last time I flew from Vegas home? We got here and we started our descent, and then we pretty rapidly stopped our descent as we were about 1,000 feet from the runway. The captain came on and said, "We came in a little faster than they intended for us to, And so we gotta do what's called a box rotation to give them a little bit of time. And I just realized right now that when we flew the 3.5 hours from Vegas to Nashville, when we got there, the air traffic controller was like, "Oh, are you still here?" And we had to go around again.
Take your big titty ass home.
Yeah, we both, well, I guess you didn't get it, but you saw it happen.
I saw it happen. Oh God, it's become our new, you're lucky this is an airport. And here's the thing, there's a strong chance I will see that person again in the coming months because of other things I have scheduled. And he probably won't remember that this happened, but oh man, was it the funniest thing I saw.
We will, Paige.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she also, in this argument, is like, my mom wanted me to babysit, and I said I couldn't, but I really didn't have anything going. I just didn't want to. And that's why she never spoke to me again. And I was like, really?
No, that's not a real reason. That is what you're telling yourself because you can't tell yourself the truth, apparently. Like, no mom would stop talking to their daughter for that reason or whatever.
I mean, yeah. So then the kids come home, and they were like, we were out looking for grandma. And she was like, oh, yeah, she's dead. And they're like, I don't believe you. I was like, she's been gone for 5 days. Like, you knew it. You knew it deep down in your soul.
And if you don't believe me, please take a look at this awesome box the pastor brought in.
Right. It looks like something Prince would have in his house. And that's what makes it great.
It's your mom in the box. Your mom's in the box, girl. Missing for 5 days.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See, I'm wise enough to know when an earning's gifting.
And I got just the one. A velvet box so it looks like it's having some fun. Oh my God, we got to stop.
Are we still here?
How dare you?
Anyway.
So funny.
Jennifer has trouble processing that information.
Yeah.
And so she goes to Medea's house because I think that in her life, you know, weird though the relationship is, Madea is one of the few that kind of shot her straight from the hip, if that makes sense. Of like,
yes. Even though Madea is hard on her, she recognizes that Madea is hard on her in ways that make her better. Like,
right.
You call me ma'am in my house or whatever. Like those kind of things, right? Like,
right.
Almost like boundary setting, but like it's good for kids to learn that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I think she's old enough and because of maybe trauma, a little wise enough to know that like...
Gifts need given.
No,
I'm so sorry.
No, stop it. That urns need given, first off. But... it was her grandmother that looked after her, and Madea is also an older lady, and so, like, maybe I'm safe with her, and she's already treated me firm but well, you know? I got it. It made complete sense to me.
Yes. But this is the scene where Madea tries to tell her a story from the Bible.
Yes, I love this.
And Madea does not really know the story. She's kind of making it up as she goes along.
Yeah.
And she's got, like, Peter walking on water with Jesus along with Noah, and Eve was there. And the second she said Eve, I was like, okay, but what if it was the recording artist Eve? And then she was like, but then a bear clawed her and that's how she got her tattoos. I was like, it is the recording artist Eve.
I thought that was very funny.
I loved it. I was cracking up. It was incredible. But I also think that like both Madea and the handyman were people who, when presented with these kids in peril, immediately tried to help them.
Yes.
For no reason other than like, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. We don't quite know why the handyman guy who's living in her basement
we'll find out.
We don't know his motivation for it, but it's clearly not the same motivation as Randy's, right? Like,
right.
Randy is like sexually into a 16-year-old girl. So he's like hanging around the house more or whatever. The handyman is just like taking care of the kids because they need a figure in their life who like actively cares about them and makes them feel valuable and wanted in the world. Like it's a very different vibe.
Yes. But also when we find out his motivation, he has had no scenes with anything suggesting that. He just spits it all out in one monologue and then it's resolved immediately in the next scene.
I love it because you're like, oh, damn, you hit all of this real well throughout the whole movie up until right now.
The whole movie. Anyway, but she and Madea, Bible stories aside, have a very, very sweet interaction here. And I think part of the reason the movie includes this is because we just came from a real intense couple of scenes with Taraji P. Henson's character and her rejecting it, and we have now found out that she's got very specific kinds of trauma.
Yeah.
And this is a palate cleanser of like, you know, all that information, let's calm it down for a second.
Yeah.
Which I think always works really well in a play and doesn't always work as well on screen because you build tension in different ways for different mediums.
Yeah, it's because they're slightly different mediums. Yeah, but you're not wrong. I still think it sort of works in either medium.
I think it works
It just
here.
works better in, like if it works great on the stage, it'll probably work in a movie. It may not work the best way in a movie.
Right.
So, because it is somewhat transferable, but you're right. You have to do it different ways because the medium's slightly different.
Right. But I do think this is one of the places where, because the movie tries to do this a bunch of places and some are more successful than others.
Yeah.
I think this is the most successful one.
Yeah.
Because Jennifer, I would say, apart from April, Jennifer is the most fleshed out character.
Yeah.
And so this kind of works. April could have been the more fleshed out character, but they left her trauma until the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
And if we had known that earlier, it changes the whole story about her. We understand why she drinks. We understand her so much better. And like, it gives us context for her clashes with Jennifer. Like, all of it. We needed that information, or at least like breadcrumbs of that information earlier in the movie. 100%.
Yeah, because you don't really get any of it, and you're just like, damn, like she is not a good person. Like your main character of this movie, you don't like a lot. And I would have liked her. Like I just needed to like her a little bit earlier, I think.
Yeah.
Because had you had the context, you would have been like, oh shit, she is maybe not acting her best self, but it's because of these things that she has to get over, right? You don't know that until the very end, more or less.
It also, to me, gives context to why her relationship with her mother was not so great.
Yeah.
Because we will find out later that her mother did not believe her.
Yeah.
And so, like, all of those things are things we needed to know earlier in the movie to really connect with her, and it would have made it a stronger emotional core for the movie. And it's purely a point of like not taking any of this out, but just like shifting the placement of it in the movie shifts the entire tone of the movie and our emotional investment as the audience. And like, I really wish we had that information earlier, because I cried through like the back half of this movie, and I'm like,
I did too.
I needed this information earlier. I really did.
Yeah.
But anyway, after coming home, because when she goes to Medea's house, Jennifer is very afraid that they're going to be sent to foster care and be separated because she is a teenager and the boys are much younger, and they might end up in 3 different homes. Who knows?
They probably would.
Right. And this notion of, and because she says, can we stay with you? And Medea's like, no. And for as callous as it kind of treats that with Madea, it's like, she's not a relative. She's not like, no, the state wouldn't let that happen, most likely.
Right.
Like, but we get to the core of what Jennifer is saying of nobody wants us, which is so sad.
It is sad, but I understand why they feel that way. Because like literally no one has wanted them. Even their mom, who like wanted her, I don't know exactly what it was, but her addiction more than she wanted her kids. And like, the only person who did was their grandma, who has now passed away.
Right.
It's brutal, man.
Well, and even the grandma, it's perceived as took them on out of obligation.
True. Yeah. I mean, I have no indication that the grandma wasn't like a loving, nice grandma. I got that she wasn't of much means.
Sure.
But,
yeah,
like she loved them. But like now that she's gone, they don't have anywhere they even feel loved, more or less, outside of the 3 of them.
Right.
They clearly love each other very much, but like you do need parents when you're children, you know?
Sure. And I do think that that's what makes Taraji P. Henson's turn at the end great.
Yeah.
But then we have 20 more minutes of movie after it.
Well, half of that's Mary J. Blige singing before the credits then start rolling.
Right? Love that. But
yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Mary J. Blige, I will say Madea drops a bar in this scene that I was like, I never thought I would take a quote from a Madea movie that I loved, but dropping bars where it just says living takes a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that's good. Also, I liked that Bible story about Eve.
I also liked when she was like, oh, you don't know God's number?
Yeah.
And then she gives like this whole insane preamble that's like, dear, it's like her version of like the Lord's Prayer, I guess.
Right.
But she's like positioned it like that's the phone number for God, and I thought that shit was very funny.
Very funny. And again, I think she's trying to cheer her up.
Oh, I don't think she thinks that's the phone number for God or whatever. Yeah, I think she's just trying to make Jennifer laugh.
But what if it is, though?
That explains why I've never heard his voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just didn't know the right holy number, celestial number.
Yeah. Or is it because the last time you called, he picked up and was like, oh, you're still here?
I was like, fine, I'll go to Earth and forget you exist.
Anyway.
Don't kill my brother.
Oh, no.
He did, Paige. He did.
I'll reset the brother counter. We cut to the club where Mary J. Blige is like, hey, April, you selfish as fuck. And I'm like, okay, though. And here's the thing. She's not saying it to her about working at night like everyone else is. She's saying it to her of like, I know this is tough. I know this isn't what you wanted, but these people are your family. You are in a position to help them.
Yeah.
And you instead are making choices that actively hurt other people. And that's not the kind of person I think you are as your friend.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, get you a friend that will be honest with you like this. Get you a friend that is like, hey, you're not acting your best self right now because I know your best self. That's why I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
This is such a strange reference during a Tyler Perry movie, but I wrote in my notes, Mary J. Blige is like the singing Silent Bob of this movie because she only drops facts and sings amazingly. But you're right. She needed to hear this.
Yes. And I know for many people, Silent Bob might seem like a weird reference. It's not, because the only time Silent Bob talks is to be like, hey, is your friend? I think that, and like, that is who that is.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, because again, Mary J. Blige has 3 lines in this movie. The first one was like, homegirl, you don't need another drink. You need to go home.
Yep.
The second one was like, you're on next. And then the third one is this being like, as your friend, respectfully, you fucking up.
Yeah.
And like, then she does 2 songs. She goes up and sings this next song, and it's incredible. This is the title song of the movie.
Yes.
I Can Do Bad All By Myself. And it's great. This is one of the best songs in the movie.
I agree.
And thank goodness it's Mary J. Blige.
I mean, you could have had any other singer from this movie sing it and it would have been great. Like, all of them can sing.
Yeah, because literally
They're amazing.
everybody.
Yeah, even the pastor. Dude's amazing.
Everybody.
Yeah.
But halfway through the song, we get a sudden flashback to her mom on the bus, and I laughed out loud. I'm sorry, because it's so absurd. I was just like, I don't know what to do.
Paige, now in hindsight, you're like, oh, she's sitting in her pew at church.
No.
Because they're showing everyone at church, right?
Oh, yeah. They're showing some people at church, but then they're cutting just to her mom on the bus. And I'm like, they're not going to do it. They did it. Because you watch her mom have the brain aneurysm and she's just like, ugh. And you're like, no,
insane.
Don't do this movie.
So wild.
Oh, God. Anyway, April comes home and Jennifer is giving Manny his insulin shots. And April is like, I can't keep y'all.
Right.
And I think that's her saying, like, the way my life is now is incompatible with caring for you in the way you need to be cared for. But Jennifer is like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And I'm going to be just like you when I grow up and only care for myself because that's the only way to be. So leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. But then we cut back to Mary J. Blige singing again in a different dress. So I guess a different day, but it's the same song.
She's got a set she sings, Paige. She's got a set, yeah.
I was like, were we still in the song from earlier? I don't know.
I did think it was wild to imply the passage of time, cutting from someone singing on stage to a different place and then cutting back to the singer on stage, now fully a different day. Like, I've seen that sort of thing, like in movies before, but it's just to place it as like, this thing is happening at the same time they're singing the song. Right. This is the opposite of that. This is Mary J. Blige is singing the song and it slaps. So we're going to keep playing it. But this happens a day later. So when we cut back to Mary J. Blige, she's changed. And this is the set from the next night or whatever. Right. It was just like the craziest transition.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
So then we cut to ostensibly the next day or 2 days later. Who knows how many times Mary J. Blige changed dresses and sang. But she gets up and I would assume this is her day off because she's on 6 nights a week. So maybe this is 7 where she's not on that night or whatever.
Yeah, she's got one free night a week. That works.
Yeah. So she gets up and Sandito is like, hey, you're awake. I've got something for you. And they go do paddle boats, which is very sweet. He basically just like takes her on a date randomly. And she's just like, why did you hold me when I was sad? I was like, because that's what you do when people cry near you. Like,
honestly, yeah. Like, because you're my landlord and like, I like you, you're nice, and you're going through a hard time. I wanted to be supportive.
Yeah.
But I also understand that like people who maybe don't get a lot of that from those around them.
Right.
It might feel foreign. So like I also understood why she was asking and it made me sad.
Yeah, even though he was, no, it okay. Don't be cry. Like the Liz Lemon trying to comfort people.
Yeah, he wasn't like over the line with it.
No. And she's like, you held me like you cared. He's like, I do care. Like I've been living in the house with these kids this whole time. But then he starts asking her about Randy and he's like, do you love him? And she's like, he pays the bills. He's like, that's not what I asked you. Like,
in fact, that's kind of the opposite. But the way you answered that, let me know the answer. Like,
yeah,
you just say yes to that. You don't answer it like you just saw someone for the first time in Love Is Blind and you're not thrilled about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And you're like, oh, you're still in the pod. But they come home, the kids come home, and he surprises them with the finished room that he has been doing like large scale secret construction on while everyone's there and no one noticed.
Yo, he had a whole team in. Ty Pennington, who I've always said is the home improvement, Ryan Seacrest. Like people have always said that.
Always.
That's not new. He brought in Ryan Seacrest from Home Improvement and the whole team to redo this room.
Right.
And when they show the room page, they only show half of it.
Yeah.
Because when they walk in, the camera's like in the far left corner,
right,
shooting over their shoulder as they're walking in. And you can see there is another half to that room with a full, like, queen bed in it.
Yes.
And I'm not saying this because like it's dumb they didn't show that. You just might miss that they have 2 bunk beds for the boys and a big ass bed for Jennifer.
Yeah.
Like it's not just the bunk bed. They don't really spend a lot of time on it, but there is like a bed there for her. And I realize it sucks that they all have to share a room, but that's better than what they currently live in, which sadly is what they choose to stay there.
Right. But the second I saw those bunk beds, I was like, those are too small. These are full-grown children. Those are baby bunk beds. Like, those are toddler bunk beds. And then Byron goes to lay down on it, and he's like, oh, my bed, because it's probably, sad note, it might be the only time Byron's had his own bed.
Yeah.
As suggested by the movie. And so he's finally saying something. That's great. But when he goes to lay down in that bed, I'm like, he's going to grow out of that bed by Monday. Like, those beds too small.
I mean, yeah, but it's a bed for now. Like, he's got something now.
Yep.
I did think it was sad that these kids are so traumatized. Even when they're crawling into bed, they keep their backpacks on.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? I was like,
I did notice
that. Might be a weird directing choice, but I took it as like they have to have their important things on them all the time because they're moving around so much.
Well, and yes, that, but also when you go into foster care, you get a backpack.
Yeah.
Like that's basically it, or a trash bag.
Jeez.
And so like it was very like reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. But we cut to, I would imagine the next day where April gets up and she's going to church or rather Sandito comes up to knock on the door and be like, is April ready for church? And Randy's like, get the fuck out. I will literally murder you. What are you doing here? And then lo and behold, April is getting up to go to church.
But Sandito does leave.
Yes.
He's like, okay, fine. Sorry. Yeah. She had talked about it. It's not like that. I'll go to church. It's fine.
Right.
And he does. And then that's when we see Taraji P. Henson like come out to like dress for church.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to church. And he's like, the hell you are, or whatever.
Yeah. And she's like, who's going to stop me?
This terrible person's talking about. Yeah. And he does. He like grabs her. And then she's like, we'll talk about this when I get back from church.
Yep. So she goes to church. And this is where we get a whole sermon about being a good steward, taking care of what you have, and treasuring what you have.
Yeah.
And the whole song with the pastor, the whole thing. And it's like 15 whole minutes of runtime.
Yeah.
That you're like, can't argue. Like, I get it. Like, I would trim it, but I would miss this great song.
I say this as a like unfaith person.
Yeah.
This dude can deliver a sermon. This dude can sing. Like,
well, and Gladys Knight joins in.
Paige, you don't let Gladys Knight just sit in her own pew, right?
Right.
You make her get up and sing. Anyway, but like, he's so good. Even though I don't believe in anything he's espousing, I was in it. I was like, hell yeah, this guy's crushing it.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was. And I was like, there's no way this isn't somebody like famous in like the gospel community. And that's when I found out who he was. I was like, oh shit, of course he's this good.
Right. We then, at this point, I was like, how is there 40 minutes left of the movie?
Right.
Because we have resolved so much. Anyway, we cut to them home after church later, and Jennifer is trying to get Manny's insulin. And as she's kind of prepping the syringe in the kitchen, Randy comes out of the shadows, and I was like, oh no, I fucking knew it. He tries to assault and starts to assault Jennifer.
He does. He like lifts her up onto the counter, I think actually over the sink, and is like,
yeah,
he is like reaching down into his pants.
Yes.
We only see it from the back, but he is like about to expose himself when Sandino like hits him with the 2x4.
Oh yeah. Sandino, Tony Collette's out of the dark.
It's great.
As our hero.
Yes.
And gets him across the fucking face, and there's a fight, and I was like, fuck yes.
It's honestly not much of a fight because he hits him with the 2x4 and then gets him on the ground and just punches him a bunch.
Yeah.
And fortunately, Randy is like sort of out of it enough from the 2x4 hit that he can't really fight back.
Yeah.
But he is getting punched the shit out, which good.
Yes. April comes downstairs and everyone presents their stories of what happens. Randy lies. And she says, go to Randy, go upstairs and get in the bath. And Jennifer's like, I can't believe you believe him. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't think she does.
Either.
I think she's about to murder his ass.
In this moment, I was like, this is probably the safest way to handle it.
Yes, to separate people.
Because Randy is a violent guy, almost sexually assaulted this 16-year-old, whatever you want to call it. But like,
yes,
it was going to escalate to the worst possible place, right?
Right.
So like, this might be the best way to handle it.
Right.
And I low-key love what she does. It is a crime, but awesome.
I mean, I was cheering for it the whole time.
Me too.
Because she gets him upstairs in the bath and then she's like, what happened? And he repeats the story from downstairs. And you just watch her face change.
Yeah.
And she goes and gets the boombox and plugs it in and then holds it over the water and is like, what happened?
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
Oh no. And she's like, tell me what the fuck happened. That's my niece. And then she says, you're just like Lee, which we have not been introduced to Lee at all in this movie. Lee is a new character we've never heard of, but I would assume it was her stepfather of some sort.
Yeah, or at least the person in her life who abused her at a young age.
Right.
That was what I assumed, yeah.
Right, and she basically is like, and my mama didn't believe me, and I, like, you are just like him. And he's like, no. Now Sandino walks in and is like, oh my God, don't murder a man in the house. And she's like, I'm gonna do it. And she drops that boombox and he jumps out just enough to like, he still gets shocked, but not killed.
Yeah, I mean, he is shaking on the ground, which I guess could just be like maybe the adrenaline, and that is a very near-death experience.
Yeah, he maybe missed it. I don't know.
I mean, he isn't dead, though. Like, he clearly is okay, but shaken, because that's when Sandino's like, you got 3 minutes to get your shit and get out.
Yeah, well, and here's my thing. I don't know, because all it takes for one conduction point for electricity, right? So, like, he must have gotten out and was just shaking, because if it caught him at all, I imagine he would still be electrocuted. Like if he had a foot in the tub.
I mean, unless his velocity, unless like his inertia was already going to carry him out of the water, thereby breaking the circuit.
Breaking this, yeah.
So like, I mean, there is a way for him to have gotten shocked and still been okay, because it wouldn't have gone on forever. But that's really the only way. If he was already out over the tub, but maybe a toe was still in, and then when it shocked him and he went like rigid, he still fell out, right?
Yeah.
Because his inertia was already moving that direction. But I in my mind, he was just shaking from the adrenaline. Like he's just been in a fight and punched in the face a ton. He was laying in a bath relaxing for maybe 3 minutes before his girlfriend tried to kill him. Like he's probably got shitloads of adrenaline running through his system.
Right.
I thought it was wild that they like leave him in the bathroom shaking on the floor and the scene doesn't cut right away, you know, because the Sandino has just been like, you got 3 minutes to get your shit and get out. And so like they walk out of there and then you see Jennifer walk up and just be like, oh, are you still here?
I'm not going to be able to look him in the eyes the next time. Anyway, so April leaves. She goes to the club to drink because she has obviously just been triggered by some past trauma that has maybe not been processed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Sandino gets Randy out of the house, takes his keys, he gone. And then he goes to the club. And this is where she's like, why are you so nice to those kids? Are you a pedophile?
That made me so sad. It made me so sad.
But I understand where it's coming from. Like, sad though it is, but like...
It's trauma informed for sure.
Yes,
because they clearly experienced trauma that was revealed, sort of over a flashback, but also confirmed by what she just said in that bathroom scene.
Right.
So like, I don't think he is doing anything nefarious. We do learn his sort of motivation for like treating
right now, literally, like
people this way. Yeah, like I felt really bad for him. Like I know someone who like really loves kids and doesn't have any of their own and is like just likes to be around and help kids. His name's Mikey.
Yeah,
like
he's
still like, I don't know how much of this he wants to know, but he's still very closely connected to a lot of kids that he helped in a traumatic moment in their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like that sort of a thing. Like, he's a very passion-driven person. And I got that in Sandito because of what he reveals, which I'll let you reveal. But
right, because he reveals right now, he's like, you don't know my life. My parents died when I was 7. I had nobody. I used to pick cocoa leaves because that was the only way to eat. And then when I was old enough, I got recruited as like a cartel recruit. And like, you don't even know, I feel sorry for you that you can't just accept that people can be kind just to be kind.
Yeah.
Because that is worth doing. If you can help someone, why not? And so she comes home and Jennifer's still up. And Jennifer is reacting out of like guilt of like, it's my fault Randy's gone. I'll help you pay the bills. I was like, oh.
I know, it's so sad.
Jennifer.
But again, you also sort of get it. Like this is a very trauma-informed response too, you know? And she is like, it's very much like I'm sorry that happened. Please don't kick us out. I don't want you to lose your home either.
Right.
Like I can help. And it's just so fucking sad.
Well, but I do love that April says in this moment, I believed you the second you said it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I do believe you. And no, stay, but help me figure out how to take care of your brothers.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that, right? Not a mom. Don't know them.
But here's the thing. Jennifer is 16 and not a mom, but she has been taking care of them for a while now.
Right.
You know, so like, I'm sure Jennifer's not doing it right 100% of the time. I don't think any parent or parental figure does. But like I fully believe that they could figure it out together, and those kids, including Jennifer, would be way better off in a house where April is a loving, attentive parent, which I will say, this is when that starts in this movie, because up until this point, she had not cared whether they were there or not.
Did not care. So they're going to try and work it out.
Yes.
And she, in this moment, is like, can Sandito stay? And she's like, or no, I'm sorry. Sandito comes to say goodbye. And she's like, can you stay? And he's like, it's complicated. Me and your aunt not getting along.
Yeah.
And so then she goes to talk to her aunt and retells the Bible story as Madea told it to her. And her aunt is like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, you haven't read the Bible Red Bull edition?
Oh, yes.
Red Bull. It'll give you wings to heaven.
But it is then implied that Taraji P. Henson either hears the song from the church or hears it telepathically. And she's like, Mom always knew when to show up. And I was like,
I started bawling.
So we've got ghosts now? I did start crying.
I started bawling, Paige. It was so sad.
As I was still typing, she a ghost in my notes, and I was still crying.
The hymns, Paige, you take them with you.
You take them with you.
That's such a specific ghost reference. No one's going to get it. But Paige, I know you got it.
I got it because he was still here. Anyway, so at this point I was like, okay, how is the movie still going though? Like, what is still, didn't we solve it?
Right.
But no, Sandito comes back and they have this conversation where he's like, I love you, but you need to be ready to love you. And I was like, are we going to tackle this now at 5 minutes to the end of the runtime? Like,
nope. They just jump right to their wedding.
They get married and then they have a block party reception, which I think is a great idea, especially if you have Mary J. Blige to headline. And that's the movie.
Paige, I love that it was one tracking shot of them coming out the door as a married couple for the first time. And it's one just long tracking shot following them as they walk up onto the stage where Mary J. Blige and band are set to perform their reception. I was like, holy shit, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right?
I was like, I love that Natalie and I eloped, but it would have been awesome if when I came out of the church, I got to walk onto his stage and sing I Believe in a Thing Called Love. Like that would have been awesome. Anyway.
I mean, there's always the 10-year anniversary.
We're actually going back on our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But either way, Paige, having seen the movie and we talked about the movie, what did you think about I Can Do Bad All By Myself?
I needed a chorus in that one song.
We all did, Paige.
And another editing and writing pass to make the emotional weights more consistent and to trim out for unneeded time.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I didn't not enjoy watching this movie today. There are parts of it that are bonkers. Like the insulin thing and the bus thing and like
the bonkers parts are fun. I think if you're comfortable living in a world that is very much like the Tyler Perry worldview, this is a great movie.
Sure.
I don't live in that world, so I don't like these movies typically.
You don't like movies where church is the answer.
Right.
Because there are real life implications to real life problems that church might not be able to answer.
Right. I think it's irresponsible to get that message out via pop culture on any level.
Sure.
But I also that's just my personal opinion, man, and that's not right for you. It's right for me. So I don't I don't care what other people believe. But they're not movies for me is all I'm trying to say. I don't think that they shouldn't exist or anything. Like I'm glad they exist because they are for a ton of people. We'll talk about it in box office, right? So I didn't love this movie because honestly, it's not bonkers enough, Paige. Normally what saves me is they're crazy. Like they're just normally crazy.
Yeah.
And this was just a sad movie and possibly a better movie. But because I don't jive with the worldview, I wanted the crazy and there wasn't as much of it.
I mean, Temptation: Confessions of a Marriage Counselor is so crazy that I wanted it to be that nuts. And instead I got really good singing and a story that was just a little off on structure.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with all that. But if you like Tyler Perry movies, I think this is a good one, you know?
Yeah, probably. This is one of the better ones, I would say, probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just not for me. And that's firmly okay, as box office will attest to. All I'm trying to say is my opinion on that is wrong, apparently, if you ask America. But Paige, before we get to box office, you want to hit us with some fun facts?
Yes.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Gladys Knight, fun facts. National treasure. Cheryl Pepsi Riley provided the vocals for Taraji P. Henson's singing parts.
I prefer Cheryl Coke Riley, but...
Oh, I mean, same. Is Pepsi okay? I'll live.
I always say... I'll have a water.
I ordered iced tea instead of Pepsi this week because I couldn't. I had Pepsi in the airport and I was like, never again. I will say, and this goes back to what we said in the very beginning, where this has the opposite problem of modern musicals, where modern musicals are like, everyone has to sing whether they can or not. And thankfully this was like, we gotta dub it. And I was like, yes, good call.
Yeah, but normal musicals are like Russell Crowe singing Do You Hear the People Sing? And this movie is like Gladys Knight singing Row Row Your Boat. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Love
just,
it. Love it.
Yeah, I think that Gladys Knight singing Row Row Your Boat is way more palatable than Russell Crowe's best Javert song.
Or Pierce Brosnan's Anything song. As much as we love him, even though he did 9/11, just the singing in Mamma Mia, it's tough. I was glad in the sequel where they just had him talk.
Never forget, Paige.
Never forget.
Never forget the time they let Pierce Brosnan sing. And 9/11.
Yeah. Hope, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Olade Wilson, who played Jennifer, was 24 years old, but she plays a great 16. Wow. You could not tell.
I honestly thought she was maybe 18, 19. Yeah, she looks really young.
Yeah, but I mean, I think part of it is just her performance. She did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adam Rodriguez, who played Sandino in this, and Taraji P. Henson also played an on-screen couple in Empire.
Oh.
Now, we've talked about the stage play a little bit. Technically, this is not an adaptation of the screenplay or the stage play because they share the same title. However, it still kind of is. So essentially, all of the characters from the stage play don't really exist in the film. The film has a different storyline from the stage play. In the play, it's Medea's daughter, Cora, who is one of the main characters in the film. And to me, that makes more sense. It's a clearer through line to have it be all within one family. But instead, this movie gives us our weird, so-and-so's daughter and so-and-so's aunt or whatever. But largely any other references to the play are just kind of one-offs and Easter eggs within the movie, and the core plot changes.
Interesting. Okay.
And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So this movie came out in 2009. What do you think the production budget was for it in that year?
I think this cost $2 million.
Paige, I am happy to report that this got funded to the tune of $19 million.
Okay, that means people got paid.
Definitely, yeah.
Because this is largely a single location. We're mostly in the house or the church and the club and not many other places. And all of those are easily built sets that could be anywhere. This was not filmed in Los Angeles. And so that means that the remainder of that money, because that all keeps costs low, probably went to your actors, I would hope, which means that people actually got paid for this movie more than they maybe would have expected to be paid had this been made in the studio system.
I mean, this is her, well, I say her because I was thinking Madea.
No.
This is the 5th Tyler Perry movie to come out into theaters.
Right.
Diary of a Mad Black Woman was first, and that was 2005. And because of how much control and how much money he made even off of those early movies, I wouldn't be so shocked to know that like he could just throw $19 million at a project he liked, you know?
Right.
Because he had the money, and he got Gladys Knight, and he got Mary J. Blige. Like,
right.
I'm sure those people cost money. Anyway, when it came out, it did really well, though, and it came out the weekend of September, Paige, 11th. Never forget, 2019. It was actually the weekend from September 11th to September 13th, and it was number 1 that weekend. It beat the number 2 movie, which was just the number 9, and I realize that's confusing because the number 9 was number 2 that week. Number 3, Paige, Inglourious Bastards. Number 4 was All About Steve. And number 5 was The Final Destination. So it wasn't like it was number 1 in a bunch of movies no one had ever heard of. Inglourious Bastards was in its 2nd week.
Yeah.
And it still beat it. In fact, it kind of crushed it. What do you think I Can Do Bad All By Myself made its opening weekend? The weekend of, never forget, September 11th, 2009.
I'm going to say this made $20 million its opening week.
Yeah, you're real close, Paige. It was $23.4 million its opening weekend, which is great. It was in theaters for a total of 7 weeks, and it was in the top 5 for its first 3 weeks. So it did pretty well in theaters. But do you want to wager a guess as to how much it made domestically and worldwide at the box office?
So I think domestically this made closer to $150 million.
Ooh, Paige, it wasn't quite that much. It was $51.7 million. It still made money, though. Like, that's a good amount of money.
Yeah, that's still money.
To make. Yeah. So it did fine. It didn't get an international release, so that was its worldwide take at the box office, which, again, still made money, and I'm sure it's just making money in perpetuity because, you know, it's been on streaming services. I'm sure you can rent it. I'm sure you can buy it. So, like, yeah, they're still making money. But that's your box office. Paige, do you want to hit us with that romance scale?
Our romance scale is a scale of 1 to 4 of how romantic we found the film Todd.
I'm going to give it a 1. I didn't really find this movie romantic at all. There isn't really a lot of like romantic building scenes except for the one where they're like on the pedal boat, and that's not like super romantic. So like it sort of like jumps through their courtship on any level.
Yeah.
But I like that they're together at the end of the movie. It's just not romantic.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to give it a 1 as well. It does the Hallmark thing that always kind of frustrates me, where it's like, we're going to, instead of creating a relationship between them, we create a relationship between him and the kid or her and the kid, and that substitutes for a romantic relationship.
Right. I think it doesn't work if that kid is 16.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'll be honest with you, Paige. If genders were reversed, I was the oldest, I was 16, and a hot Spanish lady was taking an interest in helping me, there's no way I would have acted on it, but I definitely would have developed a crush on Spanish ladies. You know what I'm saying?
Or Colombian ladies.
Whoever.
And, you know.
Yeah, like it could have been whoever. Just like whoever that figure is, I'm going to like have a crush on.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I don't think it works if you're 16. That Hallmark trope.
Yeah. But that's our romance scale.
All right. Well, Paige, this week you made us watch I Can Still Do Bad All By Myself. What are you going to make us watch next week?
Next week, we are going to watch Why Did I Get Married 2?
Electric Boogaloo. I cannot wait because that one, if I remember correctly, is the kind of crazy I'm here for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we did the first one last year, So I'm excited to do the new one this year.
Is that the one where they're like trapped in the cabin or whatever?
Yes, that was, and he made her drive in the snow. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the one where I started watching the movie and realized I had rented the play and not the movie.
Right, yes,
and I was like, son of a bitch. Yeah, okay. Well, now I will make sure I do my correct homework and watch the movie, not play, version of Why Did I Get Married To? And guys, it is TOO, not TWO, which is cute, right?
Yeah, I think that's cute. I'm sure we'll find a reason for why it's that way.
Well, because there's multiple people who are asking, why did I get married? Thus making two necessary. What is, I'm having a seizure. We need to stop. Paige, that's your homework for next week.
Yes. And Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
I do. This week, I'm going to read a Spotify comment from our most recent episode, which was our girls trip episode. This one's going to come in from Carrie, who said, Paige explaining Kitty Go-Gurt as I'm bribing my cat to take his meds with Kitty Go-Gurt.
Nice. Churros.
Yeah. No one has responded whether they've eaten churros or not. But if you have, reach out. I want to know about it. But Carrie, thank you so much for that Spotify comment. And if you want to have me read your Spotify comment or 5-star Apple review, leave us a 5-star Apple review or Spotify comment, and I'll do just that. So yeah, if you guys like this show and want to hear our other show where we talk about horror movies, that is The Horror Virgin. That's the only other podcast I am on, but Paige is also on Cult Podcast, which you can find at Cult Podcast. And you can find us on social media. I am at Todd J. Awesome, literally everywhere. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Instagram.
No, it's at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok, at Paige Wesley on Twitter.
That's right. All right. So that's where you can find Paige. If you want to find the show, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yep. Romancing Pod Show on Twitter.
Well, and Instagram, right?
And Instagram, but it's show SHO because character limits. If you start typing Romancing the Pod, it'll come up.
It'll definitely come up on Instagram. I don't know about Twitter because I haven't posted on Twitter in a hot ass minute. So who knows? But that is where you can find more of us. So yeah, guys, give us a follow. Support the show any way you can. We'd love it.
Smash that like button.
Hell yeah.
And that's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us
to completion. Ugh. Bye. We'll see you next week, nerds.